Right, guys, so another tier list. We've just had YCS Hartford, which is really, really interesting, and it's definitely changed a lot. So to start off with, Altergeist, untiered, nothing really changed for them. Ice Shade as well, untiered, nothing really changed from them. Sky Striker is going to be tier 1. I had it at the top of tier 2 before, as the deck that won YCS Hartford. And this is the thing, I'd say Sky Striker hasn't got stronger or anything. It just so happens that the meta is very heavy leaning towards Sword Soul, Despia. It's basically Synchro Spam decks, Despia, and Therion decks are like the three major things in the format, and all three lose so hard to sideboard cards and tech cards like D-Barrier. And so as such, a deck that can abuse those side kind of that is very consistent, can abuse those sideboard cards like D-Barrier, anti-spell, all of that. So Salamangreat is another good example, is going to just do well in this format. And so yeah, good job to, what was his name, Poe I think was his name, doing an awesome job taking first place. And you saw his build was literally just like Mystic Mine Turbo, which is really, really good. And it's interesting as well, one thing I would say is, as a cautionary tale to other people, don't think that you can just stick Mystic Mine in your deck and you're going to win. He was a good player as well, but it was definitely a good meta call, being really focused on kind of turboing out that mine, but then having Sky Striker to back it up to win the games after that, which is really nice. Salad, I'm going to put at the bottom of tier 2. I think it's the same concept of Sky Striker. They can play a lot of these tech cards. They don't really lose to any of the hardcore tech cards this format, and so it's just in a really good position at the moment. The other advantage of Salad over a lot of the other combo decks is that pretty much all of their combos are like 1 and 2 card combos. They don't usually have to rely on like seeing this piece, seeing that piece, playing loads of bricks. Not to say that Sailor can't brick, but you definitely don't have to worry about kind of not having consistency over like an 8-round, 10-round tournament, which is going to be good. Flunder, I'm going to say, is tier 1. I think it's still stronger than Sky Strike. I think Flunder's the one to watch this format, because Flunder doesn't care about the new Mystic Mind nonsense that's jumped in the format again. The combo decks, Flunder tends to play a lot of Dark Ruler No Mores and these kind of cards in the main deck anyway, and they play a lot of unfair cards like Shifter anyway. And so the combination of those two factors definitely means that Flunder has a lot of potential to kind of just run over every deck. The biggest weakness of Flunder obviously is that going second against an established board, Flunder does not do well without seeing side cards. But in spite of that, I still think it's a great deck. I still think it's definitely going to be a tier 1 deck, one of the strongest decks. Drytron I'm going to put at the top of tier 2. So yeah, it saw a lot of good results at YCS Hartford as well. And again, I would say that's largely due to the fact that, again, people just weren't prepared for it. Some sideboard cards do hurt. D-Barrier does kind of hurt this deck, but it's not as reliant as other decks. For example, you call Rituals against Drytron, they can at least still material spam, for example, which is really nice. Yeah, so I think we saw a Drytron player get to top 4, and then he lost out to the Sky Strike player, but yeah, definitely still a good deck. Virtual World, I'm actually going to move up to tier 1, and this is my kind of take for the format. Well, what I'll do is I'll put it in tier 1, but I'm going to leave it in 1 to watch. Now, I think Virtual World is perfect for this format. It's a deck that has in-deck outs to Mystic Mine and stuff like that. Mystic Mine, you're going to be hearing it a lot right now. It also has Shen Shen, and Punk is a very, very powerful engine at the moment. Punk and Therion are doing a lot, but Shen Shen just turns all of this off. I mean, the Punk engine literally, Dear Note stops being useful under Shen Shen. ABCs can barely play under Shen Shen. Therions, it's hard for them to play as well, again, under Shen Shen. Therion can't use his effect from the field. He has to use his effect from the hand, because Shen Shen will just send the card to the graveyard. Will banish the card instead. So Virtual, I actually think, is a tier 1 deck, and definitely one to watch this format. I do think we're going to be seeing a lot of good results of pure Virtual if people decide to jump on it. Ignistus, I'm still leaving it in Rogue. It did top at YCS Hartford, but again, it was more to do with the fact that it was Mystic Mine than Ignista being a specifically good pick. Ignista does have that advantage of those kind of 1-card combos, however, they have to play a lot of bricks. So in my opinion, Salad and Striker are still vastly superior to Ignista. It just so happens that he was playing Mystic Mine as well and could abuse it as well. But it's not to say it's not a bad deck, but I still would say it's Rogue. I don't necessarily think it's the format's heavily changed to favour Ignista or anything. Heroes, yep, still a low rogue deck, nothing amazing. Dark Magician, I mean Dragoon, I've talked about it so many times before. Invoked has the same problem as every fusion deck that's not Despia. Despia's got the strongest fusion engine, and everyone's hating on Despia at the moment. So if Despia is going to struggle with anti-spell and D-Barrier, I mean, what hope does Invoked have? Madolche, I think, yeah, they've just gotten worse and worse over time. Magic Key is untiered, it's not even relevant talking about. Megalith, I'm going to leave, I'd say mid-rogue again. Losing Aurodon actually did hurt the deck a lot. Having those 2 lines of play is gone is really, really problematic. D-Link, I'm actually going to leave D-Link at the top of rogue. Not because I think it's a bad deck, But we actually saw, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm pretty sure there was no topping D-Link players in YCS Hartford. And I think it's a combination of things. I think the punk engine, all of that is really good at the moment. And then also just the presence of Despia. People were scared to play D-Link into Despia with their new Alba Lenatus Dragon or whatever it's called, because that can kind of out their whole board. So I think the combination of those two factors made people just not think D-Link was a good meta call for this event, and so that's why we didn't see any of them. Thunder Dragons, yeah, I'm actually going to put it on tier, it's just not relevant. Dinosaurs should be good, but unfortunately we're just not seeing people try it. I think Dinosaurs would be a really good call this format because we're seeing a lot of non-link decks, and Dinosaurs is good against those kind of decks, but yeah, it's going to be somewhere in the middle of Rogue because for some reason I'm not seeing it. Earth Machines didn't do anything. It was one to watch last format, but like I said, Earth Machines never does anything. Everyone always acts like it's this amazing deck, and then it proceeds to do absolutely nothing. So for me, I'm going to carry on leaving it in Rogue because the deck just did not perform. Infernoids. I think Infernoids is actually another one I'm going to put in one to watch. I think Infernoids is very, very good this format. It's a deck that doesn't care about the extra deck, and it has a lot of good graveyard hate, and I think people are sleeping on Infernoids. It's also a very hard matchup for a lot of decks because they distribute over your monsters, which is great because there are a lot of kind of monsters that are unaffected and all of this nonsense. And then on top of it tributing over your monsters, it also has the ability to completely eviscerate your graveyard, which is just frustrating to deal with. When you're playing against Infernoid and every single monster's DD Crow is so hard to deal with. So I think Infernoid has a lot of potential, and it's definitely one to watch. If you're looking for a rogue deck and you want to kind of sneak in and destroy some non-meta decks, I do think Infernoid is good. I'd say one of their biggest weaknesses is going to be dealing with the control decks like Flunder, but even that, for example, Infernoid is a deck that is built to break boards. They can go second, play all those board breaker cards, play some dogmatic cards, and absolutely murder people. Yeah. Mech Knights, unfortunately, just going to still be Rogue. Therions didn't really do anything to it, so low Rogue, I don't think they're anything special. Subterrors, yeah, we're not seeing anything special, so slow Rogue. As usual, everything after about here and Rogue, I really don't care about. Like, the specific order does not matter that much. Burning Abyss as well, again, somewhere in low Rogue, not doing anything. Unchained, we haven't actually seen any Unchained, but I will still leave it in a higher Rogue position. Yeah, the two ICSs before Hartford, we were seeing people play Unchained, but for some reason people have just slipped away from this deck again. But I do think it's still a very good deck. It's one of those decks that's just hard to deal with when you come up against it randomly in the tournament because it doesn't play into the same problem. It doesn't play into the same cards as everyone else. Your hand traps are less valuable because every card needs to be ashed. Your Veilers and stuff are completely dead against this deck for the most part. It can play Shifter and stuff. You also don't even know, it could be like a stun Unchained variant, it could be more combo, or not combo, but it could be more aggressive and more focused on link climbing. I mean, they have so many different ways to play, which is great. Lyrilusks, yep, unfortunately they're going to be somewhere mid to bottom of Rogue, we're not seeing a lot. Cyber Dragons proceeded to do nothing, I'm leaving them around here. They proceeded to do nothing with Therions. All these Cyber Dragon players saying it's amazing. I ain't seen one Cyber Dragon person do anything with this deck, so yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, I didn't mention this before, but someone actually told me in the comments, and they were right. Losing Auroradon was actually huge for Infernoble, so it's actually gone down. I didn't realise, but yeah, they actually did abuse that. So while I do think they can do a little bit, they're nowhere near what they were before, unfortunately. Sharks, so yeah, one to watch, definitely. We're waiting for Duelist from the Deep, but when Duelist from the Deep comes out, it's definitely going to have an effect on Sharks, and I think this is another deck that is definitely one to watch. Tri-Brigades, yeah, Verte. I thought the Verte hit wasn't that deep, but it turns out the Verte hit was actually huge for Tri-Brigades, and I had a huge issue with them. Branded is tier 1, and it's actually shaping the meta. Now, what's interesting, by the way, I haven't got Predaplant on this list, but in my opinion, Predaplant, I'm sorry, I think Predaplant is like Rogue or something. I don't think the Predaplant variant of Branded is better. I don't know why everyone has suddenly jumped on it randomly. I think it's the same deck, basically. It loses to the same things, essentially, and that's why I don't think the Predaplant version is specifically better, because you've just traded some cards for maybe a slightly more explosive end board, but the end board of Branded was pretty good anyway. Your Predaplants, in my opinion, aren't doing anything particularly more explosive. You're a little bit more protected from hand traps with Millennium Manage Restrict, but then you're weaker to other hand traps. So it's just a trade-off. So yeah, the Predaplant version of Branded I don't think is relevant to talk about for the most part. But Branded itself is a meta shaper. It didn't perform as well at YCS Hartford, but I don't think because the deck is bad. I think it's because everyone was so prepared to deal with this deck and to deal with Sword Soul. That's what everyone was focused on, and so that's why I think it didn't perform that well. Ogdo Addict, untiered, it doesn't do anything. B-Troopers, unfortunately, they've been really hard punished, so they're going to be lone rogue. As you can see, by the way, I'm not putting a lot of things in tier 2 this time because I genuinely think a lot of decks just aren't as good as I thought they were. I don't even think they're good enough to be in tier 2. I actually moved Tri Brigade up for a rogue deck. I think it's good for a rogue deck, but I don't think it's even worth calling these decks meta anymore because they didn't perform. They're not performing in events. Pendulums, they got a little bit of a buff, but unfortunately, it's like all the cards in the format. Anti-spell kills pendulums. It's stupid, but Konami needs to fix that. D-Barrier also hurts pendulums really hard. Droll also hurts pendulums really hard. Nib also hurts pendulums really hard. Everything hits pendulums, unfortunately. So it's just a side effect. They're getting violated. We did see Andre Torres top with this, but unfortunately no one else is topping with this Blue Eyes deck, so I don't think it's relevant. Sword Soul is definitely a tier 1 deck. Very, very, very good. Yeah, it's hard to say which one is actually better between Sword Soul and Despia. Some people say Sword Soul has a better matchup, some people say Despia has a better matchup. I don't play either deck, so I don't really know. Maybe you can tell me in the comments, but definitely a tier 1 deck for sure. PK, I'm actually going to leave in tier 2. I think PK has an ability to sneak in this format just because its ability to play out of the graveyard is better than most of the other decks, in my opinion, at the moment. There's a lot of decks that do stuff in the graveyard, but PK can genuinely play out of the graveyard with all of their cards, and I think that gives it such potential that other decks don't have. They can still Cypherlock. I do think PK is being slept on. I think it's a great deck. Dinomorphia, yeah, with Rexstrom, they're amazing. The main thing holding this deck back has got to be branded. If it's not for branded, this deck I think would be a strong contender for high tier 2. But unfortunately, branded just really shuts down this deck because after 2 to 3 effects, they can't play because Masquerade just burns them to death, which is really unfair, but it's the case. Plunder is going to do good in a format like this, unfortunately, just because of the nature of light and dark monsters. Cyber Cell Lich has fallen off the map. I don't know, like I don't think it's particularly weaker, but it's just fallen off the map, and we're not really seeing any relevant results by it. As far as I'm aware, there was no relevant results in YCS Hartford. Heat Soul deck, it's not as good as Salads and Strikers as that kind of anti-meta strategy, but it's still good. So somewhere mid-rogue, not amazing, but yeah, somewhere there. So Branded Tri Brigade as well, same place as Tri Brigade, unfortunately. We just didn't see any results from it. It's a shame we didn't see any results from it, but yeah, it's not doing anything. Again, as usual, I have that second Striker Dragon there. I don't know why it always has Striker Dragon and Rockets there, but whatever. DDD did top, and so that's why I'm leaving it in tier 2. But my honest opinion about DDD is that it's absolutely horrendous. And I still maintain, I feel like DDD players are just winning because they're cheating. It must be. I don't see a universe in which a DDD player consistently beats either Sword Soul or Despia. I really don't. The Despia matchup is horrible because of Masquerade and you burn yourself already, and also because they run so many outs to your board. They can super poly your board so easily. And then the Sword Soul matchup is frustrating because Sword Soul has the ability to top deck much better than DDD. Sword Soul top decks insanely. If they top deck into a Taya, if they top deck into an Emergence, if they top deck into an Ashuna, like they can top deck so well after an initial board, and I don't know how DDD consistently beats that. And so that's why I don't think that's why I don't think DDD is that good. It has bad matchup against both the top decks. It's also bad against Flunder. It's not particularly good against Sky Strikers either because it loses hard to like Floodgates, like there can be anyone and stuff. It's got the Baron combo, but there are plenty of other decks that can Baron combo more effectively than that. So yeah, I don't know. Mathmech is a good deck, and they're already a good deck right now, like Ignista, and they're about to get their really, really good support. So I think this deck is likely to be probably low tier 2, but as an engine, that circular engine has a potential to be a tier 0 engine. Potential, not guaranteed, but we'll see what happens. The second Megalith, that shouldn't be there. Shadows, yeah, somewhere at the bottom of Rogue, it's not a relevant deck. Endymion, unfortunately, is untiered. Yeah, Pendulum's got significantly better with Beyond the Pendulum. Endymion's did not. That card is just horrible for Endymion for the most part. Gren Marjorie, even though we got 2 Desires, we're not seeing more Gren Marjorie. I do think Gren Marjorie is good, and I was actually saying before YCS Hartford that I thought we would see more Gren Marjorie because, yeah, we were in a format where that kind of anti-meta stun strategy with like Mystic Mine and stuff, just go second and ping someone with a Gren Marjorie. I thought that was going to do really well, so I'm surprised it was Sky Striker that did it, but I think Gren Marjorie can do it as well, so definitely one to watch. Potential for tier 2, but we'll see. So it's going back on the one to watch again. Mystic Mine is one to watch just because this card, I don't think, if you just chuck Mystic Mine in your deck, I don't think you're going to have a good time. I think you'll just lose. But it is a good card when it's picked in the right moment, in the right format, in the right event with a good player. It does bits. I mean, that applies to every card. But yeah, Mystic Mine definitely has that potential, and we saw it. We saw it with all top 4 decks in YCS Hartford taking Mystic Mine. I mean, we saw how problematic it can be if people aren't prepared for it. So I don't think a Mystic Mine burn strategy is relevant, but I do think Mystic Mine as kind of a side card is definitely one to watch. Adamantipator's not relevant. Yeah, I don't know. Adamantipator's not doing anything. Live Twins also not doing anything, so I'm actually moving it down to Rogue because it's just not doing anything. Orcust is... I've got a lot of decks in one to watch, and one of the things I would say is that this ban list hit a lot of decks. It brought a lot of decks, in my opinion, into a position where they're playable, and this applies to both the ban list and the new releases. Orcust is one to watch. If you guys haven't tried it, I'm going to have a profile soon, but I'm telling you now, Orcust Punk Brave is a very, very good deck. If you haven't tried it out, guys, try it out. If I'm going to move Orcust up to here, because I think we're going to soon see someone top with some Orcust Punk Brave stuff. It's very, very, very good. Zodiac, yeah, sorry guys, Konami doesn't like you. Dogmatica is going to be somewhere at the bottom of Rogue. The cards just aren't good. Prank Kids, unfortunately, we're just not seeing it. The Meow hit was huge, and it just really knocked this deck off the face of the earth. Eldritch, tier 2, it's still the same as before. Nothing's really changed with Eldritch. It's always going to lose to side cards, but I mean, what doesn't lose to side cards? Moving on, another very last questions here. Paleozoic, untiered, it's not a relevant deck. Dragoon is Dragoon. Dragoon is going to beat a lot of people just by virtue of being Dragoon, which is always going to be great. Sun Avalon, this is the thing. So Sun Avalon, I will tentatively put at the bottom of tier 2. I still don't think it's good. And I think the problem with Sun Avalon, and this is after playing it myself because I've played in a few events now. The problem with Sun Avalon is, firstly, they play a whole lot of bricks. Yes, they combo for one card, but they play a lot of bricks for that one card. And secondly, because they have so many kind of mandatory spots for a combo deck, they aren't good at siding. It's hard to figure out a strong siding pattern. Now, the deck hasn't been fully solved. I'm sure that there's a chance that some will be able to streamline the deck a bit more and these kind of things. But because of that, they tend to do very badly when they don't win the die roll because they can't go second. They really can't. It's quite hard for Sun Avalon deck to go second because you're playing... most of your deck is geared towards turboing out this normal and stuff, which isn't great. The Therion stuff does add on to that, but the Therion cards are also bricks in your hand, so they're not even really good because most of them are like two to 3 card combos and these kind of things. Like you need a Therion in the grave or a plant in the grave first, and then the Therion. And yeah, so Sun Avalon, tentative tier 2, it did hit the tops, which is why I have to respect it and put in tier 2, but I don't think it's amazing. Weather didn't do anything. It's not surprising that Weather didn't do anything. Some of the bottom of Rogue, probably untiered actually, to be honest. Predaplants, like I said, I don't think Predaplant Blend is as good. I will put it at the bottom of tier 2 because 2 people topped, but I'm 100% sure that those people topped because Branded is a good engine and because they're good players, not because Predaplant is amazing. I don't think Predaplants is good. Yeah, I think it's just it's a worse version of Branded, to be honest. Scareclaw, I don't know, to be honest. I don't really know or care. I don't think it's relevant. So Therion is definitely going to be, I'd say, mid tier 2. This is like the Therion variants and stuff. As an engine, I said it had some potential to be a tier 0 engine. We haven't seen it get splashed into everything, but the decks it has been splashed in, it's doing a lot for them. So Sun Avalon is doing a lot, ABC it's doing a lot, the Adventure Punk shenanigans it's doing a lot. So yeah, Therion is in general a good engine. We'll see if it improves. I think right now the lock of the top decks at the moment is really making it hard for Therion to kind of break out, but it is still a good engine. Punk is a tier 0 engine. It's a tier 0 engine, so it's not tier 0 as a deck. As a deck, probably somewhere at the bottom of tier 2, but as an engine, it's tier 0. I'm telling you now. Punk by itself either puts out Psychic and Punisher, and your opponent can't interact with it and you lose, or it does Hulk Dagda combos and nonsense and also gives you a free discard. So yeah, this engine is really, really solid, and it comes out of emergency teleport, so you don't even necessarily need your normal summon for it. So because of that, I definitely think Punk, I'd say Adventure Punk is probably top of tier 2, close to tier 1, and then Punk as an engine is a tier 0 engine. Like if it's in your deck, if you can fit a Punk engine, free emergency teleport, 1 or 2 Xiamin, 1 DNO, 1 or 2 Foxy, 1 Numeron. If you can fit that in your deck, put in your deck. It's like Brave. It's just really good, and it provides a lot of extra versatility for your deck. And then ABC, I'd say is mid tier 2. It's the same as Therion. Yeah, I played against a couple of them. Again, I'd say the deck is better going second than Sun Avalon. It also has an advantage in that it can get rid of a lot of the towers in the format by linking them off of Masquerena, which is nice. However, beyond that, I don't think that ABCs is that special. I still think this combination of 4 decks at the top is still very strong, and it's just a shame that ABC can't really compete with them, which is why I don't think there was a huge amount of ABCs at the top tables, but they did. Some of them did top at the top 32, 64. So yeah, guys, this is my meta tier list after YCS Hartford. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I said again, I think Infernoids and Orcust are 2 decks to heavily watch in terms of rogue decks, and Virtual World is definitely one to watch in terms of meta decks. I think all of these are going to be really, really good choices next format if you're looking for a deck to pick up and to start destroying people with. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Peace.